roster, even with Chule. But the thing here is that they still contributed in making sure that Josh and Arisen is allowed to actually roam around through the ranks here of Omega. And I also feel that time-lapse Ajin is really underhanded compared to the Misfortune by the late game. Jin, especially if left by his own support or if Stronger got deleted very early during fights. I remember that Stronger needs to place his Glacial Fissure first, and there is a Camille, there's a Lee for the backline. Time-lapse would always have a hard time. Honestly, commendable performance here for time-lapse, sitting on a KDA of 415. Only just one, that massive, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to reiterate the statement that you did. Right? If Jin is left hanging without his support, what else is gonna happen when you're comparing it with a Misfortune that has mobility, right? That has a skill that increases his mobility, that has consistent DPS. They're gonna put them at an advantage. So you're talking about those consistent outputs, those DPS potential, NXP mid game, late game is gonna scale out. And when you're talking about late game fights, I think you've stated NXP has the advantage. So considering you also have the Infernal Drake for your team,
Yes,
that's just gonna put your scaling potential for the late game just right off through the roofs.
Yes, and not to mention Infinity, it's not just any ordinary Infernal Drake. That's the spiky Elder Infernal Drake.
Yeah.
So that's literally, you're correct, through the roof, beyond the roof, to the heavens. Yeah, referencing the queens, ladies and gentlemen. But at least 1-0, and like I said, we have a very bloody fight, 15-17. Infinity on this game. Totally expected for the game number 1. And again, you should always have a very bloody game number 1, so you'd have a proper read. You have a proper read of the match.
Yeah. Though I
for the game number 2, what adjustments will you do, right?
Game number 2. I think the draft didn't have any problem. I think there are certain instances you have an advantage for the other team. You have the certain scaling potential for the other team, right? There is no problem with that. But there are certain mistakes that you really need to avoid when it comes to this level of a gameplay, this pro team play, that you really need to avoid. And yes, you could just change in terms of draft right now. And definitely it's going to change because Omega Esports are now going to switch sides with NXP in terms of the selection. So, yeah, I wouldn't change anything when it comes to the draft. I wouldn't change anything with that big of a deal when it comes to the drafting phase. But execution, there's something that could be improved in that aspect.
Yep, and also, maybe let's start, if we're accounting for the draft, then let's discuss that. Start with the Lee Sin, honestly. Maybe a denial on that. If not, just ban it out. I really feel that, I think Impressive is a good Lee Sin player, but right now, I think Josh is contesting that. I think Joshi might be the best Lee Sin player right now on the, if we're accounting for like Lee Sin power rankings. Really so successful in this pick. So far, accounting for the last 2 matches between these two teams, for the last 2 tournaments that they have faced, wherein NXP takes the win against Omega. By the way, Infinity, let me just grab some water. Okay?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, chat. Chat, how are you doing? Game number 1, very intense, going to the side of Nexplay Esports. We still have a lot more games to go. It's going to be the game number 2, best of 3. It's going to be a race to 3 wins in this matchup. 2 more wins for the side of NXP. They're going straight to the champion, as the champion rather, and getting the title of the winner. And once more, killing Omega Esports with a 3-win streak in tournaments. But if Omega Esports win this fight, they're going to be the champion of this tournament, and therefore putting Nexplay Esports in even footing against themselves. And also, in addition, I think Shinbu actually talked a while ago regarding the Lee Sin. And earlier, I think Omega Esports tackled out the Lulu. I think right now, in terms of the high priority picks, I think it's not as much of a priority as a ban against a Lulu than a Lee Sin. That NXP were really just dominating the fight. And I'm actually very interested in Shimbu on how he's gonna opinion or how on what his opinion is on this matter. But I really do think that Lulu can be disregarded and trade for a Lee Sin, considering that Lee Sin is very, very dominating for NXP Esports.
Yes, for NXP. And look at that. Very strong opener. I'm not so sure if the viewers are seeing this. But we get the draft rolling already. Infinity. Look at that. There's a Graves priority onto the side of the ban of NXP. Right now, they're already eyeing of the options available for impressive in terms of jungle, right? They might force, they're thinking of forcing an availability of a Lee Sin and also a buy, because I think NSP is very much willing for that one, and at least it puts more pressure that if impressive wouldn't choose any of the two of the Lee Sin or the buy, then he has no option of also choosing the Graves. And I cannot but feel that the main reason why the NXP bans the Graves is because they feel Infinity. Here's my best bet. Uh, that they will be members here of Omega will be choosing the Siege. But rather, the decision is to focus a bit more onto the jungle, pin down the Graves, and also remove the Siege as well, because they have Siege JLC Sakali.
Yeah.
It's workable. If you get the Lee Sin by the late game, just properly build it standard, and you can even counter the likes of Anakali.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, very interesting right now. First two bands coming from NXP and one band coming in from Omega Esports. Now we're now waiting for the second band of Omega Esports to happen. And yes, we might think it's taking too long, but it's just really that valuable of a band. So Omega Esports taking their time, taking their mindset, just brainstorming. I think it's gonna be very very important in this game. And similarly, NXP should do the same. But yeah, as you mentioned, Singe, I think Singe is also a potential counter for a Lee Sin, though it's debatable because of the knock-up potential and even the consistent damage of Singe, and even it's just zoning capabilities against the enemy team. Though, what do you think about it, Shenbu, about the potential counters maybe for a
Of
Lee Sin, considering that it's still not available in game?
honestly, there are very few counters against the Lee Sin. They
Mm-hmm.
can just go
Yeah.
toe to toe with him in the jungle. The thing here is that high ceiling champions, they really have this high ceiling champions has a lot of options in terms of playstyle. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing about the Lee Sin. But if there's one thing, if you really want to counter the Lee Sin, get a heavy scaling champion by the late game.
Mm-hmm.
Because by default, a Lee Sin falls off on the late game. I'm not saying, guys, that Lee Sin is weak. He is just designed to be as less effective in the late game compared to the early game. Lee Sin shines the most in the early game. The idea of Lee Sin is to snowball your lanes hard, and even during this Dragon or objective fights. Now, the thing here is that NXP, with the bans earlier established against Omega, Omega support, which we haven't
Yeah.
discussed earlier, will be back to his own element. The one who one of the popular early Alistar players alongside with Rox is stronger now. Is on his Alistar indeed.
Yeah. And I see a trend here, right? If your champion is very strong into the early game, you're probably gonna get a bad late game potential. And there are some instances that it's an outlier of a champion wherein a champion is strong mid game, late game, and even in early game, such as I think is a Misfortune. I think is very strong throughout the game. But there are some instances that typically happens when you're strong early game and weak in the late game, wherein Lee Sin is just really dominant when it comes to early game because you have a lot of initiating potential and just ganking potential. But nevertheless, you know what? We're done. Almost done with the draft rather. Aurelion
There we go.
Sol, Misfortune, Camille.
Because of the
Aurelion
Lee Sin
Sol.
priority, because of the Lee Sin Alistar priority on the side of Omega, that is definitely a buy into the ranks of NXP. And the buy Misfortune combo is just so good. It's just so
Yeah.
good. You'd expect someone to really be punished, even though if not killed, by the Vice, Assault and Battery, and the bullet time of the Misfortune. By the way, guys, we have the full lineup here. If there's one thing very interesting, it would be of time lapse on that Ziggs ADC, and even Fiora down at the Baron lane. I mean, Fiora really goes into the Baron lane, but that means Omega is very much willing to deliver the fight against NXP, and this composition of Omega has a lot of split pushing capacity. Guys, do share the stream. Take a
Yeah.
screenshot. Take a screenshot of the live stream. Upload it on your own profile. Just share it once. It means a lot already. And once again, let the people know that NXP and Omega is fighting each other again. Again and again and again.
You know what, Shinbu? I'm smelling something big here.
I know.
Ziggs.
Yep.
Ziggs, man. Ziggs.
Yep. I know,
For
I know.
Omega Esports. The
Plus the
backdoor.
Fiora. Plus the Fiora.
Mhm.
The 4-1 config here of OMG is very strong. So it falls upon the Camille and also the Aurelion Sol to break the formation of the 4 when 4-0-1s are being pulled off by Omega, because they're gonna be doing it a lot at the 6 minute to 9 minute mark of the game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Though, we're not looking at the early game with typical NXPs going in for the three-man roam on the top of the side of the map. But you also have Omega Esports waiting alongside this buff as well. Decent, I think, is very important when it comes to the red buff to just produce massive advantage into the early game. But nevertheless, you know what I'm expecting right now is for that Lee Sin to maybe go for the Use Blade. Well, that is what I'm hoping for because you know what, that is increased damage for a dragon fight.
Yeah.
But nevertheless,
Yeah.
Oriental is forced to flash away as NXP, as Lee Sin comes through, but Corky with a Gatling gun just
2-for-1.
dominates that HP
Yeah,
down
that's
to
2-for-1.
drain.
Yep. So that's a 2-for-1, but with a juggle on a double buff. And that will be
Uh-huh.
up to Joshi. Now the thing here is that that's just a double buff out of the 2 buffs taken on the map. So 3 buffs will go to the side of NXP, and also want to emphasize that it will be a longer buff onto Joshi.
Yeah. hmm Absolutely. You know what? Lee Sin getting that red buff already very key. But he died in that fight, which was something that you're not supposed to do. And now Vi, having killed off Lee Sin into the early matchup with one dead already, is now going in for the pressure into the bottom side of the jungle. But now it's going to be the Lee Sin going in for the pressure as well, going in for the counter intuitive fight. It's pure after being saved by the enemy team. Juicy is still alive, but it's going to be the double kill from that Camille. It's a 2-for-0. Trade off in favor of NXP, dominating the early game with a 2K gold lead.
I'm not so sure if I missed something, but I'm really curious how the hell did Joshi survive that one. I think there's a smite. I think there was a smite used for sustain. I'm not so sure on the grab, or maybe I missed out something. Or maybe the damage is not really there onto the side of Omega, but this is a total disaster now for Omega. Very early into the game. There is a heavy demand for them to group up because the aggressor for that fight was NXP. It was Joshi who was trying to actually bully out the Lee Sin in his own jungle. And now, potentially, this could be all 4 buffs of the game going at the hands of NXP.
Yeah, I mean, that early 2 kills for NXP, Omega Esports was in a bit of a struggle, was in a bit of a fringe edge in terms of winning that early game potential. But taking 2 more kills, 2 more wins in for NXP, that's gonna put them on a much more harder face of the game in terms of mid game, late game. Especially right now, we're nearing to the 3 minutes mark. We're expecting a roam, we're expecting a fight to happen, and a gold, a 2K, 3K gold lead for the side of NXP is gonna put them at an items advantage, which is gonna put Smart Omega at a very bad situation. We're in if Uzi gets those first items up and running, Joshi with those items arising, right? It's gonna be dead hard for Omega Esports.
Joshi's there here. You also have Disaster down at the obviously Disaster will be at the bottom lane. NXP's momentum is here. It's not totally expected. Chule will be arriving and deliver a last shuriken down at the bot. And that's it. They make heavy pickups and they're snowballing this bottom lane too. Prior and even before a dragon fight, NXP is starting to escalate this game into a one-sided fight.
You stated earlier that Omega Esports is gonna be forced to team up, but now NXP is also teaming up, so it's really just gonna be very hard for Omega Esports to scale out in terms of damage, in terms of member disadvantage as well, because they're countering Omega Esports with the same strategy that they could be countered with. So just a PogChamp move coming in for NXP.
Yep. And really, man, Joshi here. I'm not even removing. I have my own spectator. I'm not even removing my camera. Joshi, because Joshi,
Yeah.
if you look at the skill participation, 100% on the kill participation. And the pickups has been successful. Even in the stoppage there by Stronger, it forced a flash out of a Rise. That's going to be very dangerous. It's a big loss onto the summoner spells available for the side here of Omega. NXP is very ballsy in taking this fight. Joshi will fall back. I'm not so sure. I think he's waiting out. Yeah, a few seconds because his assault and battery is now up. Members here of NXP will deliver the fight against Omega. Assault and battery is hit there. They want to get the first pick up to JLC. Delivers also a counter with the Mega Inferno Bomb. And the bullet time will be another zone. And for sure, way on the members here of Team Omega. NXP in the position for the Drake. Can they contest? Let us see. Impressive here. Wants to go for the steal. Rather, they focus their attention towards Shule and NXP. Round 2 on the chase here. Onto the Banana Flash down at the mid. They will get the kill on time lapse.
Yeah, it's just expected for NXP. If you're looking at the items, you have Trinity Force, you have Humus, you have Mortal Reminder, you have Leandra's already for NXP. While on the other end, Omega Esports, still lacks those full item build, those full items in their draft, in their inventory, which
Yep.
just puts them at a big disadvantage. And you're
Yep.
considering items as a power spike for
And
an XP.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
speaking
big
of
time.
items, Infinity, you are looking at the items prior to the Dragon Fight.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
have full core items prior to the Dragon Fight. That's just the first recall right after the Dragon Fight. Look at that. It's not just the items now, first core items. They have fully stacked boots. They have component items too, along with their first core items. Whereas for Omega, of course, there are resets available for Omega. But if you're accounting for any threatening item that is only just on this a little bit less mobile core key with the Trinity Force.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But now, you know what? NXP is gonna take more advantage to them. Omega Esports still has non-turret in them, while NXP has two. But nevertheless, it's gonna be Camille going for the Exicle Tomato.
Josh is so good at faking. Honestly, unimpressive. Did you see? They have a vision. They have a vision onto impressive, and they're putting their route. They're putting their route towards the mid lane, so that impressive can go for a kick. So impressive was waiting on the mid lane side brush. But what Joshi did, he was as if going for the mid lane and a quick bolt breaker on that side brush. And their target mainly is Joshi. And their target mainly is impressive.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So now it's gonna be NXP going in for the Rift Herald, considering that they have actually killed off the Lee Sin. But nevertheless, it's gonna be another fight into the mid lane. It's gonna be a kill from that Fiora, and now we're standing at a 2-9 in favor of NXP with 9K
A
gold
gold
lead from
Yeah.
a 2K from a 5K now to a 9.
And remember the badge also with the Ocean Drake available here for the side of NXP. And we are also accounting for the map control, 3 turrets in their packet as well. Leads after leads after leads for the side of NXP. And we are not even near the second timer of the Drake Mountain one.
I think that's the important thing, right? When you have something in advantage for you, you need to translate it to something bigger. If you don't, you're gonna get punished. And that is what NXP did. They got the first 5 kills, they translated it to turrets, they translated it to 3 turrets and a dragon, and even a Rift Herald right now into the 7 minutes and 30-second mark. And now they're sitting at a big advantage against Omega Esports. And now Omega Esports needs to think of something unconventional, untraditional. Rats. Right now, we're gonna have a gag coming in from Omega Esports.
They got a full combo, but of course within that distance, that Camille is available for hook shot to make an escape during the Baron pit. And here comes Chule. The Star Surge already on cooldown a bit off on the timer for that moment. It doesn't matter. The bullet time is also the perfect follow-up from the engager done by Chule, along with Disaster. And you can actually see NXP delivering the Disaster against OMG. An inner top lane turret should be taken in. They may have license also delivering damage on this inhibitor top lane.
That mortal reminder of a misfortune first item, that bullet time melted the Alistar like it was nothing. And now that is going to be the inhibitor turret secured by NXP in this early in match. 8 minutes in the game, 5 turrets taken down, and that is 1 inhibitor turret.
This is a one-sided game. This is a one-sided game without doubt. It all started from the double buff taken in by Joshi. It all started there from the invade on the blue buff against Impressive here. Joshi is just really in his element, not anymore on the Lee Sin, but also on the Vi this time. And we have the Mountain Drake spawning into the map. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no way in hell the Team Omega can actually go for a contestation on that fight. Rather, NXP, why not have Omega take a fight against us? We will bring the fight against them. And with that Star Surge down at the bot, they snap out. Impressive, the jungler here of Omega.
And now, with that kill once again for the jungler, they're gonna get the Mata Drake very easily, like it was nothing. Like it was free delivery from your ordered food. And now it's gonna be 14-2. Now setting at a 14K gold lead for NXP. And they're not done yet because they want more. They want the bottom lane turret, and they're probably gonna take it. You have Disaster chilling like a villain. You have Chili going in for the reset. And if you're now looking at the items, they increase their potential of survivability. Oh my goodness, how to speak with the GA for Camille and that Vi. So Omega Esports is just gonna have a harder time right now with damage item and defensive item already available for NXP.
I want to repeat just what you said, Camille and Vi on the Guardian Angel. Clearly too divers heavy. Also the side here of NXP. This will not stop them on advancing against the members here of OMG. They went even for the tower dive because you know what? impressive. Joshi knows he can go for the dive, but this is awkward. Actually, getting some third. It forced out the barrier. Bullet time gets casted here by Uso to follow up, and Joshi, who's not allowed to escape under the turret dive. So that might be it. He burned his own GA, and Arisen was not in the party to fight. Rather, Arisen decides to go for the trade. He will take this inner bottom lane. Oh, ultimate by the Fiora. JLC will use that defensively. Hook shot to go in. It stops the Hextech ultimatum, the stasis that is against Timelapse, but that should be enough. His own stasis stops him also too. And I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Two members is gone in the map. 1-for-1 between NXP and OMG.
I think Joshi went in for an undirect bait into the mid lane. Right, Camille was going in for that bottom lane turret for the tier 2. He was going in ham on that one. And Joshi just went and dived deep into the fight. And everyone from Omega Esports was held in that position to kill out Joshi. Because of the GA, because of its defensive capabilities with the stasis as well, and even a Yuma's blade, so they need everyone to fight off Joshi to just kill him out. And yes, they got the jumper, they got the kill, but they did not translate it to a Baron buff. And furthermore, Nexplay has gotten 2 more turrets, and that is not just any, that's the tier 2 turrets into the Dragon lane and into the mid lane.
Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, 16k on the gold lead here by Team NXP on top of a 16 kill lead against 3 for Omega. Now, they're hovering around this Baron, making sure that they got all the points of entry covered. Not to mention that they have a Ryzen already going for the split. But here's the real deal. A setup here for Chuli to land Star Surge. Luckily, only this place is stronger. So stronger with a flash. He can still survive that one. And gives freedom though for Joshi to fly in. He will flash back. No Guardian Angel available for him. And with no ultimate available for that Alistar, his life will melt. And of course, GLC won't join this party because he's being kept busy by Ryzen. That's why NXP will just pick up members of OMG one by one with the safeguard out. It won't be enough, and I think that is the game, ladies and gentlemen. This game number 2 comes out with NXP being too strong, and you look at that. They will also be removing an inhibitor, maybe just as a bonus for the points. Indeed, NXP is now set to become champion of this Contender Series 2-0 against against OMG.
That's GG, well played. Nexplay Esports got the early game. 5 kills. Put them at a 2k gold lead. At the 3k gold lead further when they got the tower first blood. And Omega Esports was not able to trade it off with a turret into the Baron lane. So that put NXP just further in the line of the gold advantage. And before the first dragon came up, there were first core items already available for NXP. The Mortal Reminder for Misfortune, you have NXP Disaster with the Locket Enchant already, Liandres for Chili, NXP Arisen with the Trinity Force, and Omega Esports wasn't able to really have these core items available for them as well. So when you're talking about items, NXP already dominated that fight. But it's not just that. Omega Esports forced that fight. So NXP went in for more kills. So they translated it to a dragon and kills. And that after put them at a 5k gold lead. And that just came through consistently into the fight. They got that inhibitor turret into the top lane after they go from the Rift Herald. So 2k gold lead, first couple of kills, Omega Esports was going to contest, going in for that aggression, put NXP at a 5k gold lead. Rift Herald after, that was just a straight landslide in that fight. I don't know how to speak because that is just how intense this game is.
Indeed, feeling the and I cannot but feel that Omega has a nice running comfort here.
Mm-hmm.
They have a nice plan. That is a plan we've seen time and time again on other tournaments, especially with Ziggs, even with the Fiora. But I think this game is a good testament and a good pivot point and message against Omega that it can be shut down. What NXP has done is deliver early game fights. Focus more on the early game so that no freedom, no team fight capacity is enabled for the side of Omega, especially when you emphasize the items right earlier. NXP, it's always within their playstyle to take early leads. And it's very difficult to come back from there. That's why if you really want to go toe-to-toe with NXP, you need to shut them down early into the game.